The goal to me is not longevity. It's what you were at your best versus them at their best. And what level of adversity you faced at the time you were being your best. LeBron James smoking DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, and the Toronto Raptors is not the same as Jordan overcoming the bad boy Pistons. LeBron James joining forces with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh and Ray Allen and those boys in Miami is not the same as Michael Jordan going up against Magic.
Michael Jordan, LeBron James. Two names. One debate that refuses to die, no matter how many seasons come and go. Who truly deserves the title of the greatest of all time? But here's the catch. Maybe we've been asking the wrong question for decades. We argue endlessly about championships, finals records, scoring titles, assists, rebounds. We crunch every stat, compare every highlight. But none of that really captures what it takes to be the GOAT. The question that matters most isn't about numbers or accolades. It's about struggle. It's about who had to fight harder, endure more, and overcome obstacles that might have stopped anyone else. Greatness isn't only measured by trophies or records. It's measured by survival, by the challenges, the punishment, and the sheer weight of expectations that threatened to crush you before you even had a chance to prove yourself. Picture this. It's the mid-1980s. The NBA isn't just a league. It's a battlefield, a war zone. And there is a team out there that doesn't play to compete. It plays to destroy. The Detroit Pistons, the bad boys, had one mission every night: stop Michael Jordan at any cost. They called it the Jordan Rules. And make no mistake, it was a strategy designed for one purpose only: break him. Physically, mentally, completely. Bill Laimbeer, Dennis Rodman, Rick Mahorn. These weren't just players. They were enforcers. Every drive to the basket meant collisions that rattled bones. Every mid-range jumper came with forearms in the ribs. Every possession, every quarter, every game was a test of willpower and endurance. They weren't merely trying to beat him. They were trying to end him. And season after season, Michael Jordan endured it all. That he walked into that violence fully aware of what awaited him, game after game, knowing exactly how much pain he would have to absorb to continue winning. It wasn't luck, and it wasn't mere talent. It was preparation, resilience, and an unshakable mindset that refused to bend. Even Stephen A. Smith recalls the era with clarity, the intimidation, the brutality, and the relentless pressure that Jordan faced every single night. In short, greatness is not just what you accomplish. It's how much you survive to achieve it. And in that regard, Michael Jordan's journey wasn't just remarkable. It was historic.
To travel. I think about what the 76ers were in the 80s, what Boston was in the 80s, what the Lakers were in the 80s. And although Michael Jordan didn't win a title, the road that he had to travel to ultimately ascend to the point that he got to once the 90s rolled around says a lot to me. I think that LeBron James, it's not his fault, but NBA rule changes had changed drastically from the bad boy Pistons to the New York Knicks with Anthony Mason and Charles Oakley and all of these guys and what have you. And so I just look at it from that perspective, and I think about what Michael Jordan had to endure because of the physicality of the game, the rule.
Think about what that really means. Michael Jordan didn't just face talented opponents. He faced entire dynasties. The Larry Bird-era Celtics weren't simply a collection of skilled players. They were a machine built to dominate, an era-defining powerhouse. The Showtime Lakers, led by Magic Johnson, weren't just flashy. They set the standard for basketball excellence across a generation. The 76ers, anchored by Moses Malone and Julius Erving, were champions in every sense, a team constructed to win and to endure. These were not merely Hall of Famers on the other side of the court. These were teams that had already cemented their places in history, teams designed to win championships, not just single games. And year after year, Jordan had to confront them, navigate their strength, and rise above losses that would have crushed most players. The expectation wasn't just that he might fail. Nobody believed he could survive the onslaught. Yet survive he did, consistently, game after game, season after season. Stephen A. Smith often emphasizes another key factor. The rules themselves favored physicality over finesse. Hand-checking meant defenders could push, grab, and hold an offensive player on nearly every possession. Flagrant fouls were rare, and referees allowed intense contact at nearly every turn. Want to attack the rim? You paid for it, in bruises, scrapes, and sheer pain. This was Jordan's crucible, his trial by fire. Every game demanded toughness, resilience, and the ability to endure physical and mental punishment that would have broken lesser athletes. Now, fast forward to 2003. A teenager from Akron, Ohio, steps onto the NBA stage. At just 17 years old, the world was already watching. LeBron James, heralded as the chosen one by Sports Illustrated, carried expectations unlike anything Jordan faced as a rookie. He hadn't yet played a professional game, hadn't yet won a championship, and hadn't yet earned the right to define himself in the league. And yet, the weight on his shoulders was enormous. The pressure LeBron inherited went beyond basketball performance. He wasn't entering a neutral team. He was stepping into a struggling franchise, expected to be its savior. The comparisons to Jordan were immediate and constant. From day one, LeBron was framed as the next standard-bearer, the player who would redefine greatness. Unlike Jordan, whose talent was recognized but whose legend had yet to be proven, LeBron entered with destiny written before his first dribble. Rich Paul, LeBron's longtime agent and confidant, has explained how uniquely difficult this path was. The spotlight, the constant comparisons, and the weight of expectation weren't just motivational tools. They were pressure points that could shape or break a career. For LeBron, every game, every season, carried the scrutiny of a public convinced he was either the future or a failure. And from the very beginning, there was no room to develop quietly, no opportunity to grow away from the eyes of the world.
Away from things like this. This is not the way the players are currently skilled. They're not only socially responsible, they're morally responsible, and they feel they have an obligation because of the position that they're in to say, okay, this is my community. That could have easily been my son, my brother, my friend, my cousin, or something of those magnitude. So I set that aside. I'm just looking at strictly basketball related.
Think about that for a moment. Michael Jordan had time to grow, time to stumble, time to learn from every mistake without the entire world scrutinizing him. He could falter against the Celtics or the Pistons and still rebuild quietly, polishing his craft in relative shadows. Each playoff run was another step in a gradual ascent, a chance to build his legend piece by piece. He had the room to evolve at his own pace. LeBron James, by contrast, was born into a spotlight so bright that it could have been overwhelming. By the time he was a teenager, the world already knew his name. High school games were broadcast on ESPN. Sports magazines plastered his face before he had even set foot on an NBA court. Endorsement deals came before professional achievements, often worth more than what most players would earn in an entire career. And the pressure was uniquely cruel. The world didn't just want LeBron to succeed. They wanted him to become Michael Jordan. Not his own version of greatness. Not a new chapter in the sports history. They wanted a carbon copy of the man already hailed as the greatest that T.O. grasped the magnitude of that pressure. Picture this. 2001 Colorado Springs at the USA Basketball Youth Development Festival. Across the country, the Lakers and the 76ers were battling in the NBA Finals. Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant were at their peak. Allen Iverson was dazzling with crossovers and fearless drives. Meanwhile, in a dorm room in Colorado, a group of 16-year-old players were watching history unfold on a TV screen. Among them were LeBron James and his rival, JJ. The teenagers had just spent the week competing against each other, testing their skills and learning to read one another on the court. As they gathered in the dorm, they began to imagine how they would explain this moment to their friends back home. That's when Sean Dockery, JJ's teammate who would later play at Duke, said something almost prophetic. His words captured what everyone in that room, knowingly or not, had witnessed. The beginning of a career destined to carry unprecedented expectations, pressure, and scrutiny. For LeBron, the stage was set not just for greatness, but for a comparison that no player had ever faced before. From that moment on, every move, every success, every misstep will be magnified. Unlike Jordan, who had time to grow quietly, LeBron's journey was under the microscope from day one, and the world was watching, waiting, and already making judgments.
And I'm going to tell everyone, I just saw the best basketball player ever. And when you think about what he said, I've thought of this moment so many times in my life. We were 16 years old. We were 16 when Sean said that. And he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong.
At just 16 years old, the world was already calling LeBron James the greatest basketball player who had ever lived. Before he had played a single professional game, before he had lifted a championship trophy, before he had proven anything on the biggest stage, the crown was already being placed on his head. But consider what that really means. When you are declared the best before you have done anything, where do you go from there? There is no higher summit to reach. The peak has already been claimed. Every step forward is expected. Every victory is merely meeting the expectation. There is no room to shine above what people have already decided you are. And the consequences of that spotlight are brutal. Every loss is magnified, turned into evidence that the hype was undeserved. Every setback is not just a mistake. It is proof, in the eyes of critics, that perhaps the crown was given too early. Even when championships come, they are weighed differently. Success is anticipated. Failure is fatal. For a teenager stepping onto the court with that weight on his shoulders, there was no normal path to greatness. Each game became a measure not only of skill, but of resilience, of mental toughness, of the ability to endure scrutiny that most adults could never imagine. This was the reality of LeBron's early journey, a life lived under the microscope, where expectation was constant and leniency non-existent.
Each generation of greatness raises the bar for the next generation. In the footsteps of Kareem, of Wilt, of Bill Russell, of Larry, of Magic. And then Michael set the bar so high. And if anyone has come close to that bar,
It's LeBron.
It's LeBron.
Michael Jordan set a standard so high that anyone who followed would inevitably be measured against it and fall short in the eyes of millions. Not because those who came after him weren't extraordinary, but because Jordan had transcended greatness. He became the benchmark, untouchable and seemingly flawless. He wasn't just a player. He was the definition of the word legend. And for LeBron James, that meant chasing a ghost, an ideal already immortalized before he could define himself. The trials each faced were dramatically different, but equally formidable. Jordan's opponents tried to break him physically. They fouled him, shoved him, collided with him on every drive, hoping to punish or intimidate. He had to survive violence on the court, grind through physical brutality, and endure punishment that would have sidelined almost anyone else. LeBron, on the other hand, faced a different kind of battlefield. His trials were historical and psychological. Critics compared every move he made to Jordan, every championship to Jordan's 6, every finals loss scrutinized through the lens of perfection. LeBron's struggle was less about withstanding elbows in the paint and more about withstanding history itself. One man battled the physical game. The other battled the weight of legacy. Which challenge was harder? That's a question no one alive can truly answer, because no one has had to endure either. And then there was Shannon Sharpe, whose voice cut through the debate with clarity and force. He reminded everyone that LeBron, even in his 19th season, was far from declining. He wasn't fading, struggling, or winding down. He was still elite, still dominant, and still shouldering teams in ways most players could only dream of at a fraction of his age. At 37, he was averaging near 30 points per game, still making All-NBA teams, still leading his squad in nearly every major statistical category. Shannon pressed the point even further. Consider the comparison to Jordan. Michael played 15 seasons, retired at 35, and then returned for 2 years with the Wizards, already clearly past his peak. LeBron, however, had redefined longevity. He was performing at an all-star level at an age when most legends have long since stepped away, relying on experience rather than explosiveness. And then Sharpe asked the question that everyone, deep down, wants to ask but struggles to articulate. How do you measure greatness when one man battled every era's best to forge a perfect record, and another battled the weight of expectation, history, and longevity to rewrite what it means to age as a superstar? There is no easy answer, and that is why the debate rages on.
Level. Did you ever think you see somebody in your night team, no matter how great they were, play at this level?
The answer, as far as most people were concerned, was no. Nobody thought it was possible. Think about what LeBron is battling at this stage of his career. Father Time, the universal enemy of every athlete, creeping in with inevitable decline. A league full of younger, faster, stronger players, each studying his every move, analyzing tendencies he's been perfecting for nearly 2 decades. Yet, despite all of that, he remains one of the best players in the world, performing at a level that defies expectations. But then Skip Bissinger, or Skip Bayless as we know him, fires back with a counterpoint that immediately complicates the narrative. Longevity, he argues, is not synonymous with greatness. Sure, a long career demonstrates consistency and durability, but it doesn't automatically translate to championships, dominance, or transcendent skill. Skip points to Karl Malone, a player who spent years at the top of his game, scored over 36,000 career points, yet never captured a ring. He breaks it down further. Endurance and numbers alone don't define legacy. Greatness is measured by impact in the moments that matter, by the ability to alter the course of a game or a series, not just by staying on the court. This distinction, Skip emphasizes, is what separates exceptional careers from true legends. Longevity gives you opportunity, but it doesn't guarantee immortality. And that's the tension at the heart of the debate. LeBron has both longevity and extraordinary skill, but how does that stack up against the pressure, perfection, and peak dominance that define Michael Jordan's career? That's the question the conversation keeps circling back to.